Hi everyone, and welcome to another meeting of Halloween and Holiday Addicts Anonymous. This month we're going to be working on just a small little plaque. I think it'll be a good seller at your craft shows and stuff if you do that. But quick and easy. We're going to use a couple of stencils to make it even easier. And not a lot of prep to do. So let's get started. The first thing you want to do is, here's our little thing, our little plaque. It's actually two little plaques. The back larger one is a little bit larger than 6 inches, and then the one that goes on top is 5 inches. But of course you can always enlarge this up if you want to make a bigger plaque. So what you want to do first is give the larger plaque a coat of marigold, and the smaller plaque a coat of graphite. Once you get that done, you want to dry it and then give it a quick sand with your favorite sanding block. This one I've had forever, so you have a smooth painting surface. We can also go ahead and put the pattern on to the smaller plaque, so we'll be all ready to go on it. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then I'll be back. Alright, so I put the pattern on my little, the smaller plaque, and I did put on the flowers and the leaves, but I went ahead and applied the pattern for the triangle shape for the candy corn completely, because we're going to paint right through the flowers, okay? And I could have got it on there a little straighter, but I think it'll be okay. So we're going to what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and paint in the candy corn completely with some light buttermilk to start with. So get a little light buttermilk, and I'm going to go ahead and use my 1/2 inch flat. I don't add water to my paint because I want it to cover better. This is going to take a couple coats, because we're going on over that graphite. So just give your candy corn a quick coat, and then we'll go and do something to our larger plaque and come back and give it another coat. So right now just think like a candy corn, a completely white one. Mine's getting a little larger as I paint it. Seems to happen a lot with me lately. I probably could have used a bigger brush, but oh well, it'll be okay. All right, getting there. Slowly but surely. I say that a lot, don't I? All right. All right, one coat. I'm going to set this aside and let it dry so I can give it another coat. And I'm going to go to my gold bigger plaque. So let's back up a little bit more. So now I'm going to take a star stencil. You can use any star stencil that you have in your stash. I do have these larger ones on my website if you want something like that. Let's see, yeah, this way. And I'm just going to kind of line it up a little bit. I think I'm going to have to add a couple little stars over on the edge here. And I probably should be in the middle of my camera here. And I'm going to stencil these stars on with lamp black. I'm going to use one of my favorite stencil brushes. It's one from Chris Hoy. And I always like to pick up paint on my stencil brush, and then I go on my towel back here and kind of wipe it out, because I don't want to have a lot of paint on there. I don't want it to bleed underneath my stencil if I can help it. It happens sometimes. Anyway, I'm just going to stencil these stars on with lamp black, just to give it a little interest in the background. Back to my old sayings. And be careful here so you don't get off and give yourself a black line, which I probably will do. I really like this star stencil because it has so many different sizes and angles of stars. So it's a nice versatile star stencil. But if you have a favorite star stencil, gosh, get it out and use it. No sense buying one. We're also going to use a dot stencil. I'm going to use one from Tim Holtz, which you can get from CD Wood or on Amazon. I'll put the item number in the pattern packet. But again, if you have a dot stencil, no sense buying another one. Almost got it. And you know, it really doesn't matter about the center area because it's going to get covered up. But what if it falls down and falls apart? You don't want it to be unfinished in the middle. All right. Oh, lots of stars. Okay, I'm going to add a star or two right here, or part of a star, just to finish that off. Maybe a couple right here. Wherever I feel like there's just a, I ended up with part of a star there. Let's see let's find that size. Is that it? That'll work. Must have not finished it off. All right, that works. That's not really a star, but we'll make it one. So just kind of filling in where I think it might be a little lacking. Let's see, let's put part of one right here. Okay, I think that's going to do it. So we're going to let this dry, and then we'll come back and do some shading on it. Let's go back to our little centerpiece and give our candy corn another coat. And this is light buttermilk. And this coat should finish it off. I had a little bit too much water in my brush. But it'll be okay. And if you have a hair dryer handy or craft heat gun, that's always a good thing to have right by your painting desk so you can dry these base coats quicker. All right, getting there. All right. I'm going to rinse that out. And I want to let this dry again. And let's see, my stars are dry on here. They feel like it. So I am going to float some shading around the outside edges of this piece. All right, so let's get out some milk chocolate. And we will float some shading around this outside edge of this candy corn. No, scratch that, of this plaque. We're just going to float it. I think I'm going to go with a little bit wider brush. I'm going to go ahead and use my 3/4 inch so I can get a nice soft float, hopefully. I've been on vacation. I don't know if I can paint anymore. So let's go ahead and float just a little bit of milk chocolate around this outside edge. Yeah, it's doing good. We're almost done with the back side. Okay, so a nice soft float of milk chocolate all the way around this back piece. Shouldn't take us too long. All right. Kind of hokey, reminds me of Hocus Pocus. It kind of Halloweens it up a little bit. Okay, so let's go back to our candy corn. Now, the candy corn has 3 sections. Middle section's orange. This isn't quite dry, so I'm going to hit it with my heat gun. So I'm going to paint the bottom with the marigold. I'm going to paint the center section with burnt orange. So I'm just going to, you can put the pattern on, or you can just sketch on the sections. We all know what candy corn looks like. So burnt orange is going to go in that center. Hopefully I can do a better job on this. Looks like candy corn already. No, I used to like candy corn, but now, nope. Not so much. It's just too sweet. Not to say I don't like sweet things. So this will probably take 2 coats too. All right, and we're going to paint that bottom section with our marigold. Okay. The flowers are going to go on top of this, but it's just so much easier to base in if you don't have to base around flowers. I think this would look cute, even reduced down as a pen. But then again, we're not finished yet. We still have that, some stenciling to do on the background. All right. So let's let that dry. Let's go back to our back piece. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take an ultra fine point black Sharpie, and I'm just going to line some stitching around the outside edge. You want to make sure your float is dry, so this will work better. And if you wanted to, you could do it with a brush, but that's more work. So just use your fine point Sharpie and add some little stitches. Just trying to add even a little bit more interest. I'm not going to do any highlighting or anything. So this is the last thing we'll do to this part of the project. I really like this background. I may have to use it on something else. Who knows? And if you wanted, you could put this on a different shape, buy different size circles at Hobby Lobby or Michael's or something. And, you know, you're not stuck with this surface. You can adapt it to any surface you want. I don't mind. I love seeing you adapt things to different surfaces, or even changing up the design a little bit. It's always interesting to me. Sometimes I go, dang, why didn't I think of that? All right, so we're going to call this part of it done. So you can just set it aside. I'm going to hit this with a dryer so that I can get my dot stencil and add some dots to the background of this. And I'm just going to use this Tim Holtz dot stencil, and I'm going to use some foliage green, and I'm going to add some dots to the background so you can avoid the design area if you can see through it. And let's see, I'm going to go ahead and use a brush that I dry brush with to do this stenciling, just because my stencil brush is a little wet. So we just want to add these dots. Surprisingly, I'm not using Punchinello on this piece. You know? So you can go through the flowers and the leaves, but don't go on the candy corn. That'll work. Again, I'm using kind of more muted Halloween colors than I normally use. Like, you know, the marigold is more of an earthy yellow. And here, foliage green, it's not quite as bright as what I normally use. But if you wanted to brighten it up, you could always go with Irish moss. But I just wanted to have subtle little dots. Jeez. Not finding my words very easily. All right. And let's get the other half done. So just a quick little application of dots, which apparently they don't even have to line up. All right, I think that's going to do it. So that adds just a little bit of cuteness to the background. Again, use a dot stencil you have in your stash. And let's go ahead and give our candy corn another coat of burnt orange. And another coat of marigold in the bottom. Alrighty. I just want to kind of see what this is going to look like for me. Yeah. When we get the flowers on, it's going to look cute, cute. Alright. So let's dry this. And then we'll do some highlighting and shading on our candy corn. Alright. So, with your dry brush, we want to dry brush some highlighting on our candy corn. We're going to go ahead and do that with warm white. So just some warm white. And I'm going to pick a side, and it's going to be the right side. And I'm just going to start dry brushing. I'm going to start in the buttermilk. So in case I didn't get enough paint out of my brush, I'm laying it down on that lighter area. So I'm just going to dry brush the right side, a little inside the edge a little bit. And this is with warm white. Already looks like it has some dimension. I'm going to go across the bottom just a little bit. Okay. While I let that dry, I'm going to float around the outside edges of this part of the plaque with lamp black. And I need to get a little bit more paint out. So, kind of a limited palette. We're going to throw some purple in here, I think. So I'm just going to go around the outside edges of this small plaque with a soft float of lamp black. Quick and easy. Now it looks like I have a water line, but I really don't. It's just that I sanded that surface before I started working on it, so it's clearing out some of the dust. All right. Now what I want to do is I want to float down the left side of the candy corn and across the bottom with a nice soft float of that milk chocolate. So I'm going to start up in the top, and it's going to go across all the colors. Down. Just kind of walk it around the corner here in the bottom. Now, if you like to mop out your floats, this is a good place to do it. And just soften it a little bit and leave additional hairs there. Sometimes it happens. I'm also going to float this color up the right side. It's going to be a smaller float. Okay, looks good to me. So let's go ahead and take a liner brush and some warm white, and we'll line a highlight on that right side, just to brighten that highlight up a little bit. Cool. So now what we can do is we need to darken that shading on the orange and yellow a little bit. So I'm going to do that with a tiny float of burnt umber. So just a nicely blended out float of burnt umber just to deepen on that orange. The milk chocolate didn't show up quite enough, so we'll just deepen it a little bit. All right. We can also float shading around the candy corn on the background with lamp black. And this way you can clean up the edges of your candy corn if you need to. I do here and there. So just on the background, around the candy corn, float some lamp black. Doesn't take much to pop it off the background. Okay. There we go. So now what I want to do is I want to paint those leaves on the background. I'm going to go ahead and do that with foliage green, and I'm going to use a filbert brush. All right, so I grabbed a number 6 filbert. You could use a 4 or a 6. And I'm going to paint those leaves on with foliage green. I'm going to start with the bigger ones first. So you just kind of press it down and then twist it to the side. So press your brush down, not your butt, your brush down. And then as you pull the stroke, you twist it to the side, and that will help you get that point on your leaf. Okay. So press it down, twist to the point. You could probably do this with a round brush too if you have trouble with filberts. But once you seem to get the hang of it, it goes really quickly. So we're going to get all our little leaves on here. Now this one's a little bigger, so I'm actually going to stroke it twice. All right. And 3 more. All right. Cool, quick and easy leaves on there. Now I said we were going to bring in some purple. So I'm going to go grab some purple cow, and we'll see what we can do on those flowers. Okay, so we're going to paint our flowers with our filbert brush also. And all of them are on top of the candy corn. So basically, what you're going to do is get that hair out of your filbert. There you go. You don't want to paint with that. We're just going to, you don't have to worry about the tails on this, okay? They're just going to meet in the centers. So I'm just going to do the same thing I did with the leaves. Is I'm going to press it down, and as I pull it towards the center, I turn it and lift up. So I'm just going to add these petals all the way around my flower. So the points, the center of the petals don't have to be perfect, because we're going to cover them up. All right, one flower done. I'm going to do this other small one in the top right with the filbert, with purple cow also. It's nice when you don't have to worry about the tails so much. Yeah. And I think I'm going to do this front one with white, with warm white. So I'm going to clean that brush out. Same brush. I probably should have put the pattern on for that one, but it'll be okay. We'll just wing it. I think we can make it work. All right, so let's go back to our leaves. What we want to do is we want to float just a touch of marigold in the tips of each leaf. So it's a really small corner load of marigold. It's just going to go, you're just going to kind of touch it into the tip of each leaf. Thankfully, we didn't put a lot of leaves on here. Alrighty. We want to touch some shading and line the stems and vein lines with evergreen. So just a quick little kind of C-stroke float at the base of each leaf with evergreen. Got that float in there. Those are looking pretty good. And then our liner brush and some evergreen. You can thin it down just a little bit. You want to give those leaves a center vein line and just continue that as a stem. Even though it kind of gets lost in there, you still need it because I said so. And try to keep your hands out of them. That's That's always the hard part, I think. Right, I did add some little like scrolls around the flowers, and you can just put these wherever you'd like. I think I added one right about here. I'm going to do this with foliage green. And I'll do one over here. And let's see, we should probably do another one somewhere. Maybe a little one over here. All right, so let's go back to our purple flowers, and now I'm going to bring in a totally different color. I'm going to bring in some dragon fruit. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to float a little touch of dragon fruit at the base of each petal. I love the color dragon fruit with purple. So just tuck a little dragon fruit in there. And you can also float this on the white flower. It just kind of brightens them up a little bit, but not too bright. And we'll go ahead and do this to the white flower too. Almost done. I'm going to come back and I'm going to float a highlight in the tips of each of the purple petals with purple cow plus warm white. I just want a little bit lighter value of purple cow. And that's just going to go on these outside tips. Right, looking good. And then on our white flower, I want to float the edges with just straight warm white. And I know they're based in warm white. We just need to pop up those tips of those petals a little bit. So I'm just going to add a little float of straight warm white in the tips of those petals. It really does make a difference. All right, let's tuck a little bit of shading on the candy corn next to the flowers with a little bit of burnt umber, just to pop them off the candy corn a little bit. It doesn't take much. Alrighty, we just have to put some centers on and do the lettering, and we'll be done. I do want to come back with my dry brush and a little warm white and lighten up this tip of the candy corn a little bit. It kind of got a little dark. Alright, I like that better. So I think what we'll do is we'll do the lettering and then we'll come back and tap in the centers, because I don't want us to drag our hands through it. So I am just going to use warm white, and I'm going to paint that lettering. If you have a white paint pen, you could use that. But I'm going to use my liner brush and warm white, and I'm just going to paint on those letters. Now I'm kind of shaky today, so we'll see how this turns out. All right, doing okay. And let's get candy corn on there, and then we can tap in our centers. So this project could go pretty quick. Especially if you use a paint pen for the letters. All right, let's tap in our centers on the, I'm going to tap in the white one with yellow. And you can make these centers as big as you want. You're not limited to the center that I drew on the pattern. And then I'm going to pick up some warm white and tap a little bit lighter in the top. And I'll pick up some burnt umber and tap in the bottom. The purple flowers, I'm going to go ahead and tap their centers in with lamp black. Here again, they don't have to be the same size as what's on the pattern. You can make them as big as you want. That's my excuse for making them bigger. Alright, and I am going to pick up a little warm white and tap a little bit of warm white in those centers also. Now I feel like the purple flowers need a little something. So I'm going to take my liner brush and warm white, and I'm going to very thinly outline those petals. Again, you could do this with a paint pen if you want, but they just need to stand out a little bit more. So let's just outline them. And all else spells outline. Okay, yeah, that brightens them up quite a bit. All right, our white flower, we can go ahead and outline that with some thinned, I'm going to say dragon fruit plus just a touch of burnt umber. It's not going to show as much, but probably needs to do it. Otherwise it will look all lonely not being outlined. So just a little smidge of burnt umber in some thinned dragon fruit. All right. So I am going to get out my paint pen, my white paint pen. And here again, you can do this with your liner brush. I'm going to go to the back of my piece and see how it's working. All right. Haven't used this one in a while, so. And I'm going to add some stitching around this centerpiece. Now, this is a pretty good paint pen because I haven't used it in a couple of months. And it still works. And I'm pretty happy about that. Doesn't sound happy, I know, because I'm concentrating. Paint pen's going to make that stitching go quite a bit faster. And if you wanted to add any other details, to your piece, you could. I'm not sure that I'm going to add anything. Maybe some dots. Maybe some little dots to fill up some spaces. Just to brighten it up. Yeah, that helped. Yeah, I like that. And so there we go. Let's stick this on our background and see what we got. I'm going to probably add some wire and maybe some of the Halloween beads that I have. And we'll have a cute little sign. Now you said you can enlarge it up, make it look better. Bigger, not better. Well, yeah, you can make it look better. It's okay with me. But make it a little bigger. You could use different stencils on the background. You're not stuck with what I used here. But anyway, thanks for joining me. I hope you enjoyed your little project for Halloween. And enjoy your candy corn if you like it.